Hey, it's Jeff Zito, and thanks for listening to another episode of Celebrity Jobber. Our guest this week, a Hollywood heavyweight. As a television executive producer and director, Jeff Margolis has shaped hundreds of the entertainment industry's biggest events, including 2 American Music Awards, 8 Oscars, 7 Screen Actors Guild Awards, 3 Emmys, 3 Golden Globes red carpet specials, and the list goes on. He also directed and produced the feature film Richard Pryor Live in Concert. How did he get into the TV business? What was he studying to be? What was his big break? And of course, what was his first job? All of those questions to be answered with my guest, executive producer and director, Jeff Margolis, right here on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm great, man. I'm glad to be talking to you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be talking to you. How you doing?
Doing great, man. So far, so good. Did you happen to catch the Super Bowl?
Of course.
And
the show, which was incredible.
Did you have any favorite commercial by chance?
I thought the Dunkin' Donuts commercial with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon and Jennifer Lopez was the highlight of the commercial of the night.
I agree with you 100%. And don't forget our former, big fan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I know that he was a Patriot, but don't forget about Tom Brady as the DJ. That was the whole thing for me. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was really good. That was the highlight. And I was waiting all night, and they saved it to the very end. I wanted to see those Clydesdale horses from Budweiser.
Right.
No?
They saved that for the very end because I heard that was the big comeback, right?
Yeah, that's always been the biggest commercial on the Super Bowl, and so I was waiting for it all night, and there it was in the last hour of the show.
Right.
So I really enjoyed the football game, and I enjoyed the halftime show. How about you?
Yeah, ditto. I thought it was all great. I really was impressed. But let me talk about you for a minute because this is what we're here to do.
Sure.
And I'm so I'm so interested in you. I went to college to be, a film major. Didn't work out. I went into broadcasting, but a guy in my class ended up making a movie called Waiting, and his name was Rob McKittrick, and he ended up actually, making a movie. So was it film, game shows, TV? What was it that you were interested in as a young boy?
Entertainment television, variety. I loved music, I loved comedy, and I loved those hour variety shows. That's what my real interest was. I graduated high school, and I got accepted to USC as a pre-med student, believe it or not.
Wow.
And about halfway through my first semester, I thought, you know what, I'm not going to dissect another frog, and blood makes me weak in the knees,
right.
So I'm out of here. And I went to the film school at USC, but I really wanted to be in television. And UCLA had the only television school in the country at the time, so I transferred over to UCLA and went to film and television there. But I wanted to be on a stage. I wanted to be in a studio so I could see how it was all put together and how it was all done. So I had a relative in the business.
That's what I hear. I hear that. I mean, not only a relative, Jeff, but I mean, like kind of a big deal. I was like, wow, okay, I didn't know about your relative, and tell us who it was.
Well, I used my nepotism card.
Why not?
I called Uncle Monty Hall, who was producing and starring in a hit show on NBC called Let's Make a Deal.
Wow. And he helped get things going.
He opened the door for me. He knew what I wanted to do. He was very generous, very kind, very helpful, and he got me a job doing cue cards.
Okay.
On his show, which is where I started. And I moved from Let's Make a Deal. I went on to do cue cards on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour. You remember that,
I
right?
do.
And then From there, I went to the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour as the assistant director, no more cue cards. And then after Sonny and Cher, I got my first directing job on a network primetime weekly series called Tony, Orlando, and Dawn.
Oh, yeah. Man.
And I took off from there. Monty opened the door for me, and then, you've got to do it on your own.
Right.
After that.
Right. What do you think about, what a career, and I'm looking at all these award shows and Oscars and American Music Awards and some films that you've done, documentaries, etc. What do you consider anything, maybe a show, maybe Uncle Monty? Was there like a big break that you can think of that things just kind of took off after a certain event happened?
Oh, I think that, once I started directing and people saw my style and saw the way I did it and heard about what it was like to work with me and stuff, it just happened. One of the great experiences, which didn't really open a lot of doors, but it just put me on a different playing field for a while. I did a movie called Richard Pryor Live in Concert.
Yes.
And it was the very first movie that a stand-up comic did, a full-length feature. Stand-up comedians were doing specials on HBO and network specials, but there was never a movie done. I was fortunate enough to do Richard Pryor Live in Concert, and that was really a memorable experience.
Now, when we're talking about live TV, that to me gets my heart pumping, because it's got to be, full of anxiety. What a rush. Can you talk about, like, say, the Oscars, and you are producing and directing the Oscars, and here it is, live TV, anything can happen. Is your heart pounding the whole show? Are you, more or less kind of relaxed because, you've done this a lot of times? But, tell me about live TV and if that is as anxious as it sounds.
Well, it is. It is. I always sort of compare it to, that's why I call the book We're Live in 5, because that's really the last thing you hear. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we're live. And I sort of compare it to a jet pilot taking off. Once they push that throttle forward and the plane starts moving down the runway, they've made a commitment. They gotta get that puppy up in the air.
That's right.
And doing a live show is sort of the same way. Once you count down, you're live on the air. You're live on the air, and whatever happens, happens. It is what it is. Hopefully, you've prepared well enough so that you can, get the thing off the ground and make it happen. Get off the air on time, and I've never gotten nervous. I don't get nervous. I get excited. I really get excited when I do these shows. It's such a rush.
I bet.
And I love doing them. I love the challenge of, these shows are supposed to be 3 hours. You're supposed to get off the air on time, and you try your hardest to do that because that's what the network wants. That's what the sponsors want. But you can't predict what's going to happen on these award shows.
Right.
A winner's announced. They come up, they make an acceptance speech. You ask them to keep it to 45 seconds, but they're nervous. They don't think about, they're not looking at their watch. They don't think about it. And sometimes they start thanking their ballet teacher from the fourth grade, and their chorus teacher from high school and all that stuff. And so that's when it gets boring, that's when the music starts playing.
That's right.
After 45 seconds. It's a lot of talent that hears the music starting and they say, look, stop the music.
Right.
I worked really hard to get up here, and I might never get up here again. So I'm going to thank all the people I want to thank. You're in trouble as soon as somebody pulls a piece of paper out of their purse or their coat pocket.
It seems like it happens on every award show. And the thing that's kind of on my mind these days is, the host of the award show. I mean, it's such a different day. I mean, today's different than 5 years ago. And how difficult is it to choose who's going to host this show? I mean, how edgy, how you want a balance of all these different things. And it seems like today has to be harder than ever.
It is harder than ever. And in the glory day, the producer used to get to pick the host, and you'd have to get it approved by everybody, but usually they would. And now it's sort of done by committee. Everybody's got to say so in who should host the show, because you're dealing with you're trying to get so many different audiences to view your show. And it's tough. And, you have a guy like Jimmy Kimmel who was on the air every single night of the week, every week of the year. People are familiar with him. It's very comfortable. He's funny. He's good. And so he's a good host. But the music shows, like Trevor Noah hosts the Grammy Awards. He did a great job. He did it. But he's a stand-up comedian.
Right.
He never thought he'd host the show, but he does a really good job on the Grammys, and it's a different kind of hosting than Billy Crystal on the Oscars.
Right. I was going to ask Jeff, do you remember your first job, your very first job?
As a director.
As anything, like your very first paying job, like as a kid, what was it?
My very first paying job was I worked at a fast food place.
Okay.
I worked in the window taking orders.
Quickly.
That was my very first job in high school.
And you quickly figured out that wasn't where you wanted to be.
No, and I graduated high school and I think I mentioned this before, but I got accepted into USC as a pre-med student.
You were going to be a doctor.
I thought I was going to be a doctor.
Wow.
I changed my mind quickly.
What did your dad say about that?
Well, I dedicated the book to my dad. My dad was very supportive of. He knew I didn't want to be a doctor or a lawyer. He knew it from the time I was 5 years old when he brought the first television home.
Right.
And I was hooked. And so, I quickly left USC and got into UCLA in the film and television school.
Yeah, but I just find it fascinating that you were a pre-med student and you were on track to become a doctor. And I just can imagine having that conversation with my dad saying, Dad, look, I don't want to be a doctor anymore. I want to call Uncle Monty and I want to go into TV game shows. And I just imagine what that conversation was like. In my house, it was not going to be a supportive type of conversation. I can tell you that much.
Right. Well, I knew I was going to have trouble with my mom, but I knew that my dad knew. I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
When Bill Clinton was president, for the 8 years, I did pretty much everything that they did on television. We did a yearly special on ABC called A Gala for the President at Ford's Theater. And what I did was I set up a thing with Bill and Hillary's social secretaries, whereby before we shot the show, Bill and Hillary hosted sort of a cocktail party for all the talent that was appearing on the show.
Right.
And everybody we went to the White House, and we spent an hour with them having wine, and they got to speak to all the talent. The talent got to take pictures with them. It was great. So the second year I did that, I decided I would take my parents. And I would take my parents to sit in the audience on the show and meet the President and First Lady of the United States of America. So we're standing in line. There was an armed, uniformed person there who was introducing each person that came in the room to meet the President and First Lady. They would say, that year Jay Leno hosted the show. So the guy would say, Mr. President, Mrs. Clinton, please meet Jay Leno and his wife, Mavis. And they would go in. And so I was right in line behind Jay and Mavis with my parents. So the guy said, how do you want to be introduced? I said, well, I know the president and the first lady because I'm the producer of the show. So just say Jeff and his parents.
Right.
And so the guy said, here's Jeff Margolis and his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Margolis. And right before that happened, we're standing in line. I turn around and I look at my parents, and they've got an ear-to-ear smile on their face. And I say to them, and you wanted me to be a doctor? Are you kidding me right now?
That's awesome, man. The book is called We're Live in 5, My Extraordinary Life in Television. I could go on and talk to you for another hour, but I know we don't have that kind of time. I really appreciate speaking with you today. Good luck on the book, and congrats on all of your success and everything hereafter.
Thanks, Jeff. It was a pleasure talking to you. Anytime you want me to come back, I'll be there for you.
Great. Unbelievable career. Jeff Margolis has been involved in hundreds of award shows and live TV. Also, he talked about his big break was, being the producer director of Richard Pryor in Concert. That film was kind of new for the time. It was a feature film. And there was comedians doing comedy specials for HBO and stuff like that. But he did this feature film, Richard Pryor Live in Concert. And he says it was because of that which led to all of his following success, maybe the style in how he shot that particular film. I thought it was incredible that he was on track to become a doctor, pre-med at USC. Not a big fan of probably the homework involved in med school and becoming a doctor. So he said TV was his life the second his parents brought that first television home, and he became an instant fan. So he decided to call his uncle, Monty Hall. Let's make a deal. He opened the door for Jeff, who became a cue card holder for Let's Make a Deal, and then things just kind of progressed naturally from there. His first job, he didn't say what fast food restaurant, but was working the drive-through window while he was still in high school. So, and once again, if I was a pre-med and I had to tell my dad, hey, Pop, I'm thinking of dropping out of med school and I want to be on game shows, I think he would have a fit. I think he would hit the roof. But Jeff's dad, pretty supportive. He says his mom, on the other hand, maybe not as supportive, but Dad was. For more on the amazing career of Jeff Margolis, his new book, which just came out, We're Live in 5, My Extraordinary Life in Television. Available now on Amazon or wherever you buy your books these days. Another great story. And again, you can check out all of our past interviews on celebrityjobber.com. Got a YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/celebrityjobber, and available to stream wherever you pod, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're on all of them, and would really appreciate a 5-star rating if you like this podcast. Leave a review. Don't forget to subscribe. Got some great episodes in the hopper coming up, which I could tell you next week is going to be a personal favorite of mine. Not one, but 2 of the Impractical Jokers. Love that show on True TV, so I can't wait for that next week. As always, I really appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. Until next week, I'm Jeff Zito.